Yeah, my name is Art Van Zanten, and I am currently the project lead on behalf of Rethink Red Deer for the Common Ground Garden project. I decided at my age to venture onto YouTube, and the cool thing about YouTube is that on the side of the program you're watching, there's all these suggestions for new programs that you could watch. And one of them was called Plant It Forward, and that sort of tweaked my interest. So I decided to play that little clip, and it was a brother and sister in Houston that had started an IT company, and so they got an agreement together for a 3-acre plot, which they divvied up into gardens and allotted refugees a plot, and then also started organizing a market garden on site. So when I saw that, I'm going, hey, this is a cool idea. We could do something like that in the city of Red Deer. And when I started meeting with city officials, it became quite apparent that their need is a little bit different in this community. And one of the needs is to provide more fresh produce for people that might not necessarily be able to afford it. And so this is how we got started on the Common Ground project in Capstone. And we're on a 4-acre site, which is not all developed as of yet. We just started developing it based on the resources that we have for each year, and are currently networking to continue to grow that part.
And so we looked at the idea of a garden or an urban farm potentially, and thought that might be a pretty neat fit for Capstone, at least for a while things are still transitioning. And we had a site in mind, and so we toured them around that site. That's where the garden is today. So we went through a process to kind of understand what they're after, what they wanted to do, how much land they actually thought they might need, and put together some agreements for our working relationship and a land lease for them, which is essentially donated, but it just kind of defines the parameters. Eventually we will redevelop that site, so it is a temporary location for them. So everything that we do on there is, with that in mind, that eventually it will need to move somewhere else.
It's a brownfield redevelopment initiative that we're working on with the city of Red Deer and multiple stakeholders to engage the community, teach them, where food comes from, how to grow it successfully, and do it in the challenging conditions we have, particularly on a brownfield site. And coming into the project, as I had in the middle of the growing season of 2022, it was definitely a steep learning curve in terms of getting familiar with the site, and then also expanding the site into what we have available for us to grow food on, but also always being aware that we have to do so above ground, and everything in that dynamic is challenging with respect to water and plant stress. And then we have the added bonus of being in the hail belt as we are in central Alberta. So we had no less than 2 hailstorms, but luckily we didn't get impacted too badly by that. So we were able to actually produce over 1,250 pounds of vegetables and fruit. And the first year was around 200 pounds. So it was definitely a huge increase. But I think in the first year as well, they were challenged to get plants started by the middle of the growing season. So as far as we were able to work with the concentric circle bale gardens there, I think they were quite successful in getting the project started and getting some food to those that needed it, and then amplified that success by doubling the square footage of the site in 2022, and looking forward to 2023 to have a far more proactive plan with growing and getting the plants and everything on site, but then also incorporating a drip irrigation system, as everything we did for 2022 was very labor intensive with moving water from totes to watering cans to the actual planting areas. So with a pressurized system, drip irrigation will make it much easier on our volunteers.
Yeah, so they're working on a brownfield site. It was the former location of the electric utility. So there's some things there that we wanted to make sure it was safe for growing vegetables and produce, and so we brought in materials to help them make sure that was done appropriately. We helped them bring in some clean soil. The city actually donated some compost. We have other departments that give them water on an as required basis. Sometimes it's weekly, sometimes less frequent, depending on the rainfalls. I believe there's a number of city folks that actually volunteer and participate in the garden that way.
Sarah joined from Rethink. Soon after, Lori Jack joined from the United Way. And slowly but surely we had, all kinds of organizations come to our committee meetings to start forming this whole concept, including Cynthia from Living Lands Landscape Design, who was very instrumental in really actually doing the design for the garden.
The work done in the first year with outreach and identification of stakeholders and the years prior to there being any physical presence on site were instrumental in being able to have something that the community wanted to be part of and continues to be a part of. So in those initial meetings and facilitation provided graciously by the City of Red Deer, we were able to connect with the different groups, recruit people to be part of those conversations. At least a good dozen or so different stakeholder groups, inclusive of the newcomers to the community, the Urban Aboriginal Voices group to connect with the Indigenous communities, the elementary schools, which have opportunity to take kids on field trips to different sites around the community, and our project is an obvious win in that respect.
So we brought in a C-can to store some materials, and they brought in another C-can as well to store some of their materials. There's a building on a neighboring site, and so all three of those pieces have been painted with murals, and we worked with the Common Ground folks and our arts and culture folks to find some artists and develop some concepts and put murals on all three of those spaces.
Food security became a real topic of discussion in all of this, as well as sustainable food production. And so as a result, our mission that we came up with was that, first of all, it would need to be an all-inclusive space. Everybody would be welcome. It'd be an opportunity to safely grow our community. We could share with each other seeds of knowledge, and through that whole process, then in the end, you would have some sustainable food that would be grown, and this has been donated now the last couple of years to both the mustard seed as well as the food bank mainly, and then there's been some individuals from Kiowa and from CARE that have also benefited from the produce that was grown there. In 2021, towards the latter part of June, we finally got the approval from the city to start growing produce and constructing the garden beds. And so then my role as initial planner changed to more of an active role of actually being on site and managing volunteers, as well as some students that we got some funding for in the first year to start constructing the gardens, of course seeding them, planting them. First year we worked with a lot of donated material from the greenhouses. 2021 was a very busy summer for me because everything was new, first of all, and we're all doing this together. But we made it through. We're still here, and We also, of course, then got to deal with some significant heat and dry conditions. So a lot of watering was done in order to get some produce off the grounds in 2021. And then when we went into 2022, my life became a little bit easier because we did receive some funding to actually hire a project manager. Renee Mikulik has been very instrumental in running the garden for the summer of 2022. And so for me, then I was still hands-on, but I just got to sit back more and be told what to do rather than being the guy that was telling people, what all needed to be done throughout the growing season.
So I'm Melanie Beebe. I'm the grade 4 and this year grade 5 French immersion teacher at École Oriole Park. So last spring, the spring of 2022, I was approached by Capstone Gardens, and they, specifically Sylvia Kennedy, asked me if I would like to have my students involved in doing some gardening, which works out really great because in grade 4, part of the science curriculum is a unit on plants. So we thought, what a great way to do some hands-on learning and cover our science curriculum. So that's where it started. So we got together and organized how can we cover curriculum while going to the garden, and what would that look like? So we brainstormed a bunch of ideas with a few other folks and came up with a plan. So the plan was to take these 25 students that I had last year down to the gardens, down to Capstone Gardens, and help teach them how to be gardeners. So it was introducing them to a brand new community, a community of gardeners, which was pretty exciting. So that's how we got started.
I'm Carla Felberg. I'm the community liaison worker at Oriole Park School. And part of my job is to help students and families with identified needs, and that's how I got involved with the community garden program. We had a student who could not walk the 6 kilometers down to the garden, a round trip, so I drove him. So then I was involved in every week commuting him back and forth. And in that process, I got to build a relationship with the teacher and the volunteers that were in there, and help them guide the children with resources, so providing storybooks on, perseverance and grit. When the teacher came to me and said, how am I going to get these children to walk down that hill, garden all afternoon, and walk back up the hill? And so I provided a storybook that talked about all the great things that you get from that and how you build strength, and also helping assist her in understanding the protective factors for children that have had adverse childhood experiences. So some of those protective factors, they hit on about 6 of those protective factors: building community, volunteering, having a best friend, so then they partnered the children up with someone that they liked, being mentored, so they had the person that was had the worms and was helping them plant the seeds.
So we needed to get prepared for a gardening experience. So that involved what should we take to the garden? What does that look like to be a gardener? What do we wear? How do we get there? So in the end, the getting there was walking. And so that walk from École Oriole Park to where we needed to get to in the garden was a round trip of about 5.8 kilometers. So these students are 9 and 10 years old. So a 5.8 kilometer round trip is a big walk. That's a big afternoon walk. So that's what we decided we needed to do. We gathered our backpacks at lunchtime, we gathered our lunch kits, and we headed out the door. We would walk all the way down to the garden. So we had so much fun walking there. It was a big walk. It was big. That's a big walk for kids that are 9 and 10 years old. But kids are so positive. Kids are so joyful that they chit-chatted through it and told stories and had conversations. And before you knew it, we were at the garden. So that was how we got to the garden.
The biggest transformation for a child that I saw was a young man that has suffered the loss of a parent. And so he was very closed off, and I've been here a year and a half, but barely spoke if you tried to approach him, didn't make eye contact, was very quiet, and never really had any facial expression. His work in the garden allowed me to be down there and to make that connection with him, as well just the pure joy of what he was giving back, right? His life had been a little bit sorrow, so that piece of being able to give back really seemed to spark him. And then it also opened the door for me to be able to do other things with him. So just from building that relationship, I could have never taken him to do anything. And after building that relationship in the garden, it allowed me to, through the summer, I took him to the library, and he did a bit of an enhanced learning program there. Now, he just did a Remembrance Day ceremony, so a child that wouldn't make eye contact and wouldn't speak to anyone one-on-one, just very minimal. He actually was in the Remembrance Day ceremony and read a poem in French in front of his peers and family members that were there.
To prep the kids to get ready for the garden, we created journals. We wanted to have gardening journals because we wanted to document some of the things that we were going to learn at the garden. We wanted to be able to do some sketching at the garden. We wanted to be able to do some math. So there was a lot of things that we were going to do at the garden. So we created a journal. We Mod Podged journals. So everybody got to create their own individual journal. And in those journals, we took them to the garden with us every single day. Because when we got there, sometimes we would sketch what we saw in the distance, and the next time we would sketch what we saw up closer. And so we had those journals to document some of our experiences in the garden. So that was one way that we prepped for the garden. The other way that we prepped for the garden was encouraging each other, being prepared for what came ahead. What would happen if? And so just giving children the language that if we needed to encourage each other, what would that look like and what would that sound like? So we kind of practice things like how to encourage someone to keep going once they're tired if they're walking all the way to the garden. What to do when we got there and we might need some help or we needed to help someone else. What would that look like? So we kind of practiced those social skills. What would that look like if we needed to help each other in the garden? So those were some of the things we did to prepare for it. Of course, we had to decide, what are we going to take in our backpacks? What do we need what if it starts to sprinkle? What will you need if it sprinkles? What are you going to need for your footwear? Are you going to wear gardening gloves? What are you going to do at the garden? What do you think you'll need to be a gardener? So we talked about some of those things too and made sure that they were all in our backpack. And the kids came fully prepared. They had their backpacks, they had their water bottles full of water, and they were fully prepared to be gardeners. So it was very, very exciting. When we got to the garden, we were always greeted really warmly. We were always greeted like, we're happy to see you, we're happy you're here. So the kids really felt like that they were being welcomed into the garden. And I think children, like adults, they want to feel valued. They want to feel important. They want to have connections. They want to feel like they're part of something. And I think for them, the garden was that. I believe that the garden became a community for them, a community where they felt that they belonged and that they were valued and that they were important. And through that, they just blossomed. So really, like flowers in the garden, I saw 25 students blossom in the garden. It was really wonderful.
Well, I think I'm always driven by building desire and dreams in children, because I think that's the piece, right? We come from quite a punitive lens as our worldview sometimes, and that's what I find is sometimes we don't allow children to dream about what could be, and they get stuck in their story. So that's the part that excites me. We've taken some kids that were stuck in their story, and we've, provided a community. When we say it takes a village to raise a child, we've given them a garden community. And yeah, it makes me emotional, honestly, to think that planting seeds and nurturing could change the nature of so many children and change their lives. Give them something. Some of the children that I spoke to, they drove by the garden in the summer with their parents to see how it was growing. So then, you know, those parents that necessarily weren't involved in their children's lives also took a part. So yeah, I think maybe we change the saying, it doesn't take a village to raise a child, it takes a garden community to help nurture the nature of our children and provide food.
The other thing I think that my students really felt really empowered is that they were actually helping people of Red Deer. They were helping feed people in Red Deer. When you're 9 and 10 years old and feel like you actually make a difference in the world, that's hugely empowering. They really felt empowered that they could make a difference. And that's all through the garden, because all of the food that was raised in the garden was given to the food bank or the mustard seed. So my students felt like, wow, I can make a difference in the world. And they can. And I think for them, that was a real realization. So I saw that as a whole class. I really did.
I think just the awareness, the increasing awareness of being involved in projects like this is invaluable. And it's really interesting to have large acre spaces in the urban context for people to come and participate in, because as a society we pushed agriculture to the farms and the field outside of the city, whereas historically it used to be commonplace for us to have gardens and grow food in our own communities. So it seems like we're coming full circle to this reality and connection to where our food comes from, and shortening that distance between where it is physically and what that means for us in all aspects of living. So I think that's probably the biggest takeaway or benefit of being involved in projects like the Common Ground Garden, is reconnecting with your natural environment and the benefits that come with that. So it's not just, you know, bird watching or, you know, watching the leaves blow in the wind. It's your actual physical connection with that, and how your energy invested in something like growing food comes back to you as a return in terms of delicious nutrition, basically.
You know that expression, it takes a village to raise a child? I really felt that, because through the gardening experience, I also became part of that community that was created at the garden. And for those students, it became a community for them, because not only did we do gardening at Capstone Gardens, but lots of people came into our classroom and they taught us how to make fridge pickles with the produce that we had grown at the garden. They came in and started a composting bin in our classroom. So now in our classroom, we compost. It takes a village to raise a child, and I was so appreciative of all of the gardening experience and the village that was created in that garden, and to raise my students. So I saw changes in all of my students, actually all of them. And what I realize now is that some of those students, when they got acknowledged, because they were more than working in the garden, they were also acknowledged for their efforts, because we applied for a contest, and we actually won a national contest through the Canadian Geographic, and it was the Queen's Jubilee Classroom Challenge, and we won it for all of Canada. And so then the kids were acknowledged for their work that they did in the garden, because part of winning that contest was having to research native plants and flowers of Alberta. And the second part was very much about educating others, learning about plants, educating others about plants, and taking action, so doing something. So our doing something was working in the garden. So we won the grand prize, and And when I found out that we won the grand prize from Canadian Geographic, the administration here at the school said, let's plan a surprise for the students.
Okay, welcome everybody. My name is Mrs. Irvin and I'm the principal of Oriole Park School, and I am absolutely thrilled and delighted, first of all, that everybody was able to make it out here today, but second, for the incredible work that the students in grade 4 last year and now grade 5 this year have been doing down here at the Rethink Red Deer project. It's absolutely wonderful work and so rewarding. I know your teachers are working with you to tell you how much value you're adding back to the community, and we are all so very proud of you. So Madame Beebe had heard from a colleague last year that there was this contest through Canadian Geographic called the Queen's Jubilee contest. It was the year of the garden. And they did lots of work in the classroom researching the native plants of Alberta, and they submitted all that work that they did, learning about all the different plants that are native, that grow naturally, correct, in the province of Alberta. That we have the right climate and the right amount of rain and soil for those plants to thrive. So with that, they found out that they won what's called a tertiary prize, or like a runners-up prize, for all of the work that you did in the classroom. Then you got involved with Rethink Red Deer and the amazing people that run that program, and they submitted their application for the big prize. And across Canada, you guys won that prize. Woo! You are. It's all the work that you've put in. I know it seems like a lot to walk down here. Rain or shine, you guys braved the weather and down you came, and you worked to make an incredible space for the city of Red Deer. So, in lieu of that, we finally get to present you with the official check for this. So I'd like to call up a couple of very special people to Red Deer Public. Mr. Dan Lauer, our Deputy Superintendent, and Mr. Jim Waters, Trustee for Red Deer Public and Oriole Park.
Sure. So we would like to present this check. Maybe come on up and get your prize. Here you go, everybody.
I'm going to send up some of the workers.
Oh, the guys that did the hard work. Congratulations. Congratulations. It's also my understanding that this year you're having Junior Achievement come in and help you guys figure out what to do with this money. Is that right?
Yep.
Excellent.
And what are you supposed to say? Merci à tout le monde. Thank you to Capstone Garden for inviting us to come to the garden.
Good job.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate these opportunities for our kids to get involved in our community, and it's excellent. The more we can do this, the better, and good job, guys.
And to Madame Beebe, Madame Rudge, and certainly Madame Kennedy that was at our school before. If you guys remember, she was with you last year, 2 years ago now. I don't know, the years kind of go fast. Guess it was 2 years ago. So to all of the teachers and the volunteers and the parents for coming out, thank you all so much. Okay, one more round of applause for our wonderful kids.